Hey guys, let's get more news about Dallas, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Former Cowboys rival defends Micah Parsons in Malik Hooker feud. For years, the Dallas Cowboys have been coming up short of expectations in the postseason, and recently, even the addition of superstar linebacker Micah Parsons hasn't been enough to get them over the hump. Shockingly enough, if you ask one of his teammates in safety Malik Hooker, Parsons could actually be one of the main problems for the Cowboys right now. During the 2023 campaign, Parsons began hosting his own podcast The Edge with Micah Parsons. It's a move that many athletes around the world have begun to make, but Hooker thinks that Parsons' podcast is becoming detrimental to his success on the field. Another former star pass rusher in Chris Long, who has his own successful podcast, caught wind of this take, and quickly claimed that Hooker's take was absurd. To the contention that a podcast is getting in the way of Dallas' success, just looking outside looking in, I don't think that's the case. I don't think Micah Parsons' podcast lost that Green Bay game. I don't think Micah Parsons' podcast got the ball run up your *** when Buffalo thumped you week whatever it was and I won like 10 grand. I don't think Micah Parsons is the problem in Dallas. If you want to make Micah Parsons the problem in Dallas, don't make it about the podcast, okay? If there's something, and there could well be something internally going on interpersonally between teammates or factions of teammates, because this is the way this stuff goes. The issue could be interpersonal and the podcast is just an extension of it, because I don't think the podcast is creating any sort of distraction. Chris Long, Green Light Podcast with Chris Long. This would be an eye-opening take on its own, but the fact that it's coming from Parsons' own teammate in Hooker is even more shocking. Rarely do teammates ever publicly start some sort of feud with each other in the public eye, but that appears to be exactly what is happening here, which could present some issues down the line for Dallas. Long doesn't buy into the notion that Parsons' podcast is impacting his play on the field, or the overall play of the Cowboys. These guys are professionals, and simply put, Parsons would not be able to be the superstar he is without putting in the work behind the scenes that he needs to. If he wants to start his own podcast as a hobby, it's no different than a guy playing video games in his downtime, as an example. Whatever the reason may be for this brewing beef, the Cowboys are going to want to handle it sooner rather than later, or else they could have a real issue on their hands that may carry onto the field next season. Parsons is going to be a star regardless of whether or not he hosts his own podcast, and it should be clear that if Dallas wants to win a Super Bowl, they have some bigger fish to fry than these petty issues. CeeDee Lamb holdout with Cowboys expected to extend to training camp. CeeDee Lamb has not been in attendance for the Dallas Cowboys' off-season activities due to the fact his contract is set to expire at the end of the season, and he wants an extension. Unfortunately for the team, the list of players needing new deals is adding up, as Dak Prescott, Zach Martin, and Micah Parsons are all waiting for new contracts as well. When discussing the key players' negotiations, Calvin Watkins of the Dallas Morning News shared that with no agreed-upon extension, the wide receiver's absence could continue into training camp. There's been little progress on extensions for Prescott and Lamb this summer. For the second consecutive year, there's a possibility a key starter will hold out of training camp. Lamb missed the entire offseason program and is expected to miss training camp if he doesn't get a new deal. The wideout put together his best season yet in 2023, and now is in contention to get paid at a total higher than Justin Jefferson's league-best $35 million AAV, and the receiver has had supporters who feel he should be top of the priority list. There were reports that Lamb waited out Jefferson's deal to set the price tag for his new contract, but the deal was done a month ago, and no progress has been made between Dallas and their star pass catcher. The Cowboys have been shoveling money out in recent years, which has tightened the team's salary cap. Additionally, some believe paying top dollar for a receiver is bad team building. Still, when a star like Lamb can be retained, even most critics would make an exception to the rule. It appears that Jerry Jones is clutching on to his dollars a bit because his past overpays have put the team in its current situation. Now, In an offseason where three players could easily command the top price at their position, it's easy to be overwhelmed and cautious. Record-setting quarterback could be a potential cut candidate. Record-setting veteran quarterback, Cooper Rush, could be a potential cut candidate after this year's training camp. According to a report, the Cowboys are unlikely to keep three quarterbacks, so they may move on from Rush. Trey Lance has been with Dallas system for nearly a year but hasn't had any opportunity. The Cowboys want to give Lance an extensive look before deciding who they will move on from when the upcoming season begins. One source says that while Rush has been a popular member by fans, it doesn't mean his job is secure. Rush has been the backup for America's team for 7 seasons and was a contributor in 2022. Dak Prescott was hurt in the starting stretch of that year, but it didn't stop Rush from leading the Cowboys. Rush was 5-0, and there were conversations during that time frame that the Cowboys should stick with the hot hand to lead the team. However, he remains a reliable backup that the Cowboys can trust, but they may have Lance for that position. The Cowboys still need to grant Lance a chance to see what the quarterback depth chart should look like. Rush is getting older, and he isn't a threat to Prescott, nor probably Lance. Prescott is set to become a free agent next offseason since the Cowboys haven't made any negotiations or talks about a new deal. If Dallas decides to move on from Prescott, they probably keep Lance around if they make him the starter. Lance could be that guy if everything falls apart with what they need to do to bring Prescott back. However, Rush may have more experience, but the Cowboys would like to see what Lance has to provide. Here are some possible destinations for Rush. Lamar Jackson is a 2-time MVP quarterback, so he isn't going anywhere as a starter anytime soon. Rush has proven that he could step in as a reliable starter, but John Harbaugh isn't putting him in if Jackson is healthy and performing well. He could still be a good backup to stick around to prove his abilities in the preseason to showcase to other rosters what he can provide. The Ravens don't have any reliability behind Jackson currently that can step in if he underperforms or is hurt. Josh Johnson agreeing on a 1-year contract doesn't guarantee that Baltimore has any reliability. He has 1 or 2 games that he could help lead, but something like 6 or 7 games is something he isn't lasting. Malik Cunningham is the only quarterback who may have potential, but they should bring someone for competition. And you fan? What do you think of the situation of Cooper Rush? Leave your opinion in the comments.